country called the USA, and we fly our flag cause we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. Never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We make up America, it's amazing America.
Hey, welcome to the Sergeant Frank Show, and today we have an incredible guest from the far reaches of the eastern seaboard, New Jersey. My very good friend, we just met down in South Florida, Luis Vasquez, and he runs the PBA
67.
in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And what number is it?
Local 6-7.
Local 6-7. Luis, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm so excited. I have to tell you, when I first met you and you said, "Oh, are you the Sergeant Frank from the Sergeant Frank Show?" I really thought that you and Rich were messing with me big time.
No, not at all. I was excited because you hear people's voices, and I heard your voice, and I'm like, man, that's Sergeant Frank, and I'm just like, I was blown away. I was like, I can't believe I'm actually sitting in front of Sergeant Frank. So it's truly an honor to be here on the show. Thank you.
You know, I know the hard work that you do, and I know that when you were in Florida, you were doing something pretty amazing. Tell us why you were in Florida when I met you.
So we were in Florida for the convention for the PBA. We were there to discuss, numerous things, mainly just to, again, network down there. And of course, I got to meet up with Rich from Team South Florida and yourself, and Mike Brunson, great guy, all great people who are really supportive of law enforcement community and really enforcing that bond, So it was a pleasure. Learned a lot of good things down there that I know I could apply up here up north.
It's funny because we were on our way to Tarpon Springs to support a fallen officer, and he has a Snapchat group. I'm not sure if I'm saying it the right way, but I heard you. And it's just kind of funny because when I met you in person, it was kind of like the same situation with the Sergeant Frank Show. And I was
Absolutely.
like, that's the guy that you were talking to on the way to, and he was like, yeah, that's the guy. And I was like,
yep.
It was so cool. So tell me a little bit about that situation. How did that come to be?
So yeah, we have this Snapchat group. It's law enforcement exclusive. Just like we actually found ourselves from a Facebook group with all law enforcement officers in it. LEO only. There's another one, Brothers Before Others. And just like technology goes and the future is, we found each other. We've been talking for several years actually, which is pretty amazing. And we all share the same interests and of course the same ideas, and we push each other, and I think that's the best part of it. And again, these are people from all over the country.
I think it's really amazing because when we look at some of these tragic things that happen with our law enforcement brothers and sisters that do destructive things to themselves because of the stressors and some of the issues that they're dealing with, situations they've been exposed to, it's really nice to hear that there's an outlet for law enforcement officers to reach out to each other, because unless you've walked in these shoes and these boots, you can't really relate to somebody who hasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Like we'll jump on Snap, of course, and we'll talk about things that we did during the day. And because look, we go on some pretty crazy calls, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
You've been there, and maybe when you got off a shift, your guys just want to go home, and of course, you just don't want to go turn to another source, go to
Sure.
a local, pub or whatever. But no, the Snapchat group really helps, and even just making friendships in general. They only understand. It's hard to go home and really.
Well, when you vent to your spouse and they're not from a law enforcement background, sometimes it can cause, I know, issues. I mean, I can tell you, I can only tell you from my personal life. I can tell you my wife had a tough time trying to understand when I'm trying to relate the events of a day and the horrific things, and then law enforcement will, to deal with some of these things, they'll use humor. And if you're not from that background, from the outside, you look at it as being cold or callous or uncaring.
Sure.
And it's the only way that we can vent where we don't do something destructive, to ourselves, like you said, with a pub or whatever. They look at us in a different light. And if you can't tell the person that you live with, who do you turn to? And sometimes,
Exactly.
like, especially today with the shift work and everything else, it's hard to get with your friends and say, hey, man, I had this tough situation. So the fact that you guys are in this group, just being able to vent that to a fellow person in law enforcement, I think goes a long way in decompressing that situation from your own mind.
100%. I agree. Absolutely.
You've done a lot of work. I mean, you've been in law enforcement for, you said 19 years.
Correct. Yep. I can't believe it. I say that, and I look in the mirror at the same time, and I'm like, wow, time is flying.
Do you remember what I told you the day we met? I said the first 20 goes fast.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. No, you did say that, and you're right. It's funny now. At this point in my career, they say the next 5 years are going to fly by, or 6 years rather, and I don't want it to fly by. I hope in that time frame.
Do you remember the officers that you said, "Oh, look at these dinosaurs in our agency"?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Do
And
you
I'm
know
like,
who you are now?
I'm the dinosaur, I suppose.
When did you look in the mirror and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm one of the dinosaurs. I'm one of the fossils"?
You know what? Probably when I looked in the mirror and I saw all the gray hair. And then I said to myself, "Wait, I could take off today because That's right. I'm a senior guy. I got priority."
You know, one of the things, and since we're bringing up seniority, and I think one of the big failures we have in law enforcement is the lack of passing down the wisdom from the older generations to the younger generations. I can tell you the day that I got spanked by one of the fossils, and I tell you one thing, it was one of the best lessons I ever got in law enforcement. You know, when you're a cocky rookie officer running around thinking you're all that, and this guy was just real calm. What happened was I took my lunch break and I messed up his lunch break. And you know, with the dinosaurs, that's one thing you just don't do. And I said, well, you know, I really wanted to meet up with my wife and blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of looked at me and he had that Sam Elliott type voice, you know, that deep voice. And he goes, well, we just don't do that, Frank. And I was like, oh, ouch. You know what? He didn't. I would rather you yell at me or punch me in the face. It would have been less painful, but the guilt, I was like,
oh yeah.
Oh. And I tell you what, I never, ever forgot that. And even when I got promoted, I never thought that I was somebody better than somebody else. You know, I was just a lowly, I just happened to be a sergeant. I wasn't something better. I just had a few more things that I could do to help my people in the ranks and the people out on the street, you know.
While you're saying all this, I'm thinking about my past and when I first started. And I remember something that one of my, and I'm going to say his name, Lieutenant Tommy Clark, when I first came on the job, and he looked at me. And now, mind you, I was 18 years old. I just got on.
Wow.
He said to me, he pulls me aside. He goes, listen, he goes, you're young, you're moldable. He goes, I'm going to give you the best advice I'm ever going to give anybody. Like, I'd give anybody. And this is what it is. And he's a military guy, too. And I said, what is that, Tom? No, Lieutenant Clark. He says, you're going to keep your mouth shut and your ears open and listen. He goes, just listen. Learn your job. Do your job right. Do your job 100%. Always do the right thing. And just, again, ears open, mouth shut. So I listened to that advice. And I got to tell you something. It's really worked. But even our newer guys sometimes, they don't know that. They never had that person tell them that. Sometimes the things that come out of their mouths, and I look and I'm like, I never said that when I was new. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, like you said, referencing back to what you said, it's like, hey, they have to learn something from these fossils, and it couldn't be any more true. So I'm trying to pass that along. Hopefully it works.
You were talking about a situation or a program you guys do with retired officers, and that's when I was like, oh, we don't want to lose this. Tell me about this program. And you said a bunch of letters, and I don't remember what they were.
No, absolutely. So New Jersey, specifically, I can't really speak for any other states. They have a program. It's the SLEO 3 program, basically a class 3 officer, special law enforcement officer. It's for recently retired police officers, coupled along with becoming a school resource officer. So they're going back to school for that. And it's enabling them to find employment after retirement and work in our school systems. It's an amazing program. It really is. And at first, when I first heard it, I said, why don't we put regular cops there? Why don't you do this? And the day we live in right now, besides costs and everything else, you know, you have to work with your administrations in some respect. And, you know, and then you got to think about the guys that retired too. And look, we're one big family. So yeah, they have this opportunity. It's much more than just a cop in a school with a gun. It really goes beyond that. There's also a psychological thing that's in there.
How do you look up the information about this program? How can we find this? Tell me how we could Google it. Tell
I'm
me.
sure you could Google it. I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you Googled it, it's pretty well known. I mean, we're not the first ones to have SLEO3s.
So repeat the name of the program so we could Google it. What would you put in the Google search to find it?
It's a Special Law Enforcement Officer Class 3. Jump right on the state, and it actually shows exactly what they can and can't do, basically the requirements that it takes. And just to surmise it, it's recently retired officers. I know that if you retired, like let's just say Fairlawn in particular, we just had an officer retire. Unfortunately, right now you can't work in the same town, which doesn't make sense to me, but I don't write the laws.
Right.
Another town could pick you up, and I think it's like 30 or 60 days later. You have to wait a little bit. There's a little separation period from when you retire.
I got you. Now, Lewis, do you have a website or a Facebook page that people could reach out to you and get more information about some of the different things that you guys do up there in New Jersey?
Oh, absolutely. If you go on we have a Facebook. We have a Fairlawn PBA Local 67. And the 67 is numerical. You'll see we actually have a pink patch up right now for the month of October.
That's funny. We did the same thing for our website. That's funny you should say that. All right. So then is there a website too, or is it just a Facebook?
We actually, I mean, we have our departmental website, and you could always actually send a message. But for me, if you want to reach me personally, you could just reach me at flpba67@aol.com. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, anything that anybody has.
I love the fact that the thin blue line that's being stretched so thin these days, there's still guys like you out there doing the right thing that learn from those fossils and dinosaurs and continuing the amazing work of our predecessors. Because I have to tell you, there's a lot of great things that those officers taught me. You know, even with our new technology and all the great tools, you know, with Facebook and cell phones, and getting back to the basics of law enforcement and doing the right thing, like you said before, that's why we became police officers, and that's what's in our DNA.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And I know you probably have amazing plans for your retirement. Now, do you guys have a drop program up there? Is that something you're going to endure and then retire, or where are you at in your career?
I mean, I have 6 years left. We'll see where it brings me. You know, honestly, I really love this job. I'll know when the time is up, obviously, but there's always that point, I guess, whenever he reaches it.
Well, I can tell you when it happened for me, and it was kind of funny, and it's pretty much my personality, but I was walking by evidence one day, and my buddy's like, man, it feels like a Sunday, and it was like a Thursday. And I go, yeah, you know, it kind of feels like my last day. And he goes, what? I go, yeah, I think it's my last day. And he goes, are you serious? 'Cause I'm a pretty big joker. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And I was like, and I went back to my office and I got on the computer and I wrote up my resignation, and my captain walked in. I said, hey, I got something for you. And I handed it to him, and he looked at me. He's like, are you serious? And I go, yeah. He goes, listen, Frank, I'm going to go turn this in. I go, well, go ahead. So he obviously runs down the hall because they're like, finally, we got him. You know, he's leaving. And then all of a sudden it hit me, I don't have a car to drive home because my vehicle
No.
No, I had sold my truck working on a business venture, and I only had my take home. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a vehicle to get home.
I need to ride home.
So I went back to my buddy in evidence and I said, hey, you still have that old pickup truck? He goes, yeah. I go, can I borrow it? He's like, sure. So he ended up actually donating the truck to our program. You know, sometimes, like you just said, you'll know when you know.
Absolutely.
I definitely knew that day. And it all kind of stemmed from a call early in the morning. It was the one time in my 24-year career that I didn't run out the door first. And I was like, why didn't I do that?
Yep.
And I have to tell you, and I hate to admit it, but I let some of the politics from that building seep into my head and into my heart. And I was like, yeah, I think that if you're not the first one out the door, then you're at the wrong place. And you can't say that for anybody else. You know, you have to, it's just like some of these destructive things that people are dealing with. they're the ones that have to need help. They have to realize that and ask for it and go seek it. And
Absolutely.
it's the same way. But I'm going to tell you something else. Once I did that and I walked out the door the last day, another very huge thing hit me, and it was an identity situation where you go from the most powerful person on the world, right, in the planet. You could take a life, in a split second,
Sure.
and the next day, you're not. It sounds silly, and I used to talk so much trash. I'll be the first one to admit it. I talked
Yep.
a bunch of trash. I did the countdown. I'm like, I got 4 months. I was counting down the days. I want to apologize to all those people that I might have hurt their morale with, because all those people around you should be so excited and happy for you. There should be a big ticker tape parade and patting you on the back. And my agency, their solution for that was to mail me my plaque. And I was like,
What?
I
So
I and I actually wrote a story for it, and I took a picture of it, and because it was a brown paper wrapping sitting in the driveway, and I'm like, "Wow, man, I don't remember ordering anything." So I was kind of excited, and I opened it up, and I was like, "Oh, wow."
I can't believe they did that. So you know what? Just to touch on that, we went through some bad times in the police department, in the sense of, you could say politics or bad administrations, if you will. When I took over, and believe me, I took over for a great president, David Boone. He was a detective by us, and also a reverend. One of the greatest guys I've ever met, a big mentor. When he was there, he had some tough times ahead of him, but he always managed to get a pretty sweet contract, always a fair deal. When I took over, I had big shoes to fill. I really did.
Hmm.
And what you just said, if you want to change, you gotta be. Listen, you're not gonna have everybody on board. Obviously, everybody has different personalities. We have a 59-man department, so we have 59 different personalities right there.
Right.
And not everybody's going to be on board. But if I could grab the majority of the people, and they can understand the mission that I should say, want to move forward with, and really change things. So I implemented walkouts. As the time I took over as president, we actually had 4 officers retiring, a lieutenant, detective lieutenant, and I believe 3 officers.
Well, explain to people what a walkout is,
Yeah, so
because they might think you're doing a strike.
No, no, no. We can't do those. We can't do those. No, and literally what it was just that, a walkout. Called everybody up. I sent some emails, and I realized, we had a communication issue. So I got everybody on this email program where I send an email out. Everybody gets the email. It gives them information, up to date things that are happening. I said, guys, meet me at 3 o'clock on this date. Such and such. We're gonna walk out for these guys. I excluded them from the email, and you should have seen their faces. I had all the police cars lined up on either side with their lights
Wow.
on, and we had all the guys stand up. A lot of guys. Some guys were off duty too, and they came in. When they came out, we clapped, for them, and we each one got a handshake and a hug. And our chief actually said some words. I said some words, and we started that, and we haven't ended that. We've had a few walkouts since then.
I think that's fantastic. And honestly, Lewis, listen, I'm good with it, as far as what they did. But the thing
Sure.
that bothered me the most was we had a police officer who was in 9/11 and who's actually has some health issues concerning that. And they mailed him his plaque. And I said, I don't mind that you stepped on, I don't mind that you did that to me. But the fact that you disrespected this man who was at 9/11
Yep.
serving not only his community, but his country, and
Right.
suffering from that, the unbelievable lack of respect and disregard for this man's sacrifice was beyond me. Let me tell you something. Whoever thought that was a good idea, I hope someday that I can return that favor to you, because that was so disrespectful to that man. I think sometimes in the law enforcement family, people fall through the cracks. And that's a situation right there that fell through the cracks. And I can tell you, I'm ashamed that the administration let that happen. And I hope that it never happens again. And I hope by us airing that situation out on the airwaves, that agencies are smart enough to say, listen, if you survive to make it to retirement, you deserve everything they can possibly do for you.
Well, no, that's funny you say that. You say the agencies, and you would think that the upper echelon would do something like that. And not everybody has a union, but every department has one of those officers that They're able to captivate everybody. They're able to,
A Lewis, you mean?
you know what I'm talking about?
Everybody
And
has a
again,
Lewis in their
I'm,
department.
I'm blushing. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like everybody has one of those guys,
Right.
and if they're listening right now, they need to be that inspiration and really take
Step
it to
up,
the
man.
next level.
Stand up and do
Yeah,
the right
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I mean,
Because
look, someday,
someday you're going to retire, and if they
yeah,
don't do it for you, you're going to be like, dang, I wish we'd have done that for those 50 other guys that retired. So that when I
exactly.
retired, I have to tell you, me and the bird dog, he's my cohort in Adopt
Uh-huh.
a Cop USA. His real name is his real name is Danny, and we were sitting at the Wounded Officer Initiative in Orlando for the last year's event. We looked at each other after listening to these stories from these wounded police officers, and we were like, dang, man, I have to tell you, I feel a little bit guilty that we made it to retirement unscathed physically, and listening to these stories of these people that have sacrificed so much. I think a lot of, even in our own peer group, forget the sacrifices that our fellow teammates endure and give everything they have to do the job. And sometimes it's the ultimate sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And I have to tell you, I just learned of a situation. I'm gonna lean on you because I need some help. It's almost a cold case cause, and I don't know how to say it, but a police officer from 18 years ago who passed away, and it was a health situation, and we lost him. And his
Sorry to
daughter
hear that.
is now going to college, and she's in need of some financial support. So one of our good friends, and I don't know if you got the chance to meet Christine, but she's donating her Harley Davidson '02 Sportster. And when you see
Well,
the picture of this motorcycle, it looks like a mini police bike. I mean, it's an 883. I'm not a motorcycle guy. I'm not mechanical either. I told her about this situation, and I was like, I'd like to do a raffle and donate something. And she's like, well, I got a motorcycle. And I'm like,
wow. Wait,
no
Christine, this is
kidding.
Christine from
From Team South
Christine?
Florida, yes.
Wow.
So
That's
so
powerful.
Christine's like, I want to help. And I'm like, well, then if you donate that motorcycle, we'll sell raffle tickets. I know Chicago Memorial Fund just did it where they sold
Sure.
1,200 tickets for a Dodge Ram, and they raised over $100,000 for their program. If we could do half that and raffle off this motorcycle, this would go a long way for this officer's daughter to complete her college education.
You tell Christine, have her send me some booklets up here, and I will sell as many raffle tickets as I can.
We actually built into our new website a raffling program that's going to support fallen officers' children. I mean, a whole host of things. I know after you met me, you're like, this guy wants to go to the moon. He's trying to do everything.
Oh,
But
it's amazing though.
my
Listen,
friends are like, okay, we're going to do these three things. I'm like, okay, so we're going to do the Adopt a Cop program, we're going to do the fishing program, and we're going to do the Bird Dog Posse, which is our school program. They're like,
nice.
just those three things, Frank. I'm like, okay, we'll go to the moon next year. So when this situation with this officer's daughter came up, I actually talked to the daughter. She's absolutely phenomenal, a great speaker. She wants to get involved with our program and help us. She doesn't just want to check. She wants to help. And I was like, man, that's the spirit of her father talking.
That's awesome. That's powerful. I mean, it just goes to show,
I could see her dad in her voice when she was talking about helping other people. And I just can't tell you how much that meant to me to talk to that young lady and have her dad reaching out, obviously down from heaven, because really great guy, gave so much to the community, an incredible mentor to our Police Explorer program, which I know we talked a little bit about that program. He went to Haiti to help them start their police force.
awesome.
To be taken out by illness with a long career ahead of him, I think was just a tragedy.
God bless you, Sergeant Frank, for even look in your heart right now. That's amazing. You can't tell me that we're a special breed. You know what I mean?
Well, there's nothing like it.
That's,
I was in the military, and it was a very small organization, the U.S. Coast Guard. In fact, there's more New York City cops than there are in the Coast Guard. And I was so proud of that, because if you had a problem with pay, you call up Joey in charge of pay. And I know Joey because I love that small group. When I was looking for a law enforcement job, I look federal, I look state, I look county. But a small agency just kind of called out to me. That's where I ended up. And I love that small group, that camaraderie, which is an ancient word spoken by dinosaurs. And what it meant was teamwork and brotherhood. If Lewis calls me at 2:00 in the morning, he goes, "Hey man, I need you to come over here and like right now." You go there right now. That's what
Absolutely.
camaraderie was about.
You dropped everything and went. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? Either was a beeper, they paged you because we're dinosaurs, remember, or they called you. Collect.
I have to tell you a story about me calling in sick collect one time, but we'll talk about that at another time.
Sounds good.
I
See,
don't
guys
think
will
they
never
can.
understand what that even means because
Yeah.
there's no more payphones.
Yeah, I know. That's true. It's true. And the lady that took the collect call, she was the front desk lady. Her name is Fran. I mean, she helped me with so many of my probable cause affidavits. In fact, she knew more about the law than I ever learned. And, because she wrote, I mean, that, how many probable, because back then in the ancient times, and, back when we had clubs and drove, our Fred Flintstone's cars, what we would do is we'd write out the PC by hand, and then we'd take it to Fran, and she would type it on one of these things called a typewriter. And then we would make these things we had these things called carbon paper that made a copy. Man. And then we would turn that, dude, we should do a show about that one day because that would really be fun.
And now we're in the computer stage where basically we're saving trees, I guess. I mean,
they say that, but I see these gigantic plastic bags full of shredded paper. So I'm not sure how many trees we're shredding, saving.
Exactly. I hope more trees are popping up around here.
Well, Lewis, I have to tell you, it was an absolute pleasure talking to a fellow dinosaur with years of wisdom. And I hope that when you do ever retire, that you bring that back to the young minds of the future generations of the Thin Blue Line so that they can glean, if it's just one thing that helps them stay safe and make it to the end of their career, it would be worth it.
Absolutely. No, thank you for those kind words. And I really hope to live up to those expectations. I can't thank you enough for having me on the show. I mean, it's such a positive thing. Thank you.
Well, from what I hear about you, these are all true statements, and your agency is very lucky to have you. And I hope you can do more of our shows in the future, and we can bring back some of those ancient things about PCs and carbon paper and writing reports. Actually handwriting tickets. I actually talked to a guy from New Jersey who said it was so cold up in New Jersey that you had to write the tickets in pencil because the ink in your pen would freeze. And I was like, I never want to experience that.
Man, you know what's funny? When you said that, I just had a flashback of a cold winter night when we used to handwrite the tickets. And man, my pen would run out and I get so fast. I had to go back in the car. And sometimes it was nice because it was midnight. You get out, you stretch, write the ticket while you're freezing your patukas off. Those are some good memories.
So again, tell our listeners if they want to contact your agency to get more information about the police SRO program or how to contact you personally, how would they do that?
Shoot me an email. That's probably the easiest way. I get it right on my phone. FLPBA67@AOL.com. I will definitely answer every email that I promise.
And if they want to join your law enforcement only chat group, how do they do that? Is there a way to do that still, or is that still open? How's that work?
I mean, if they're current law enforcement and they really want to be part of a group on Facebook, that I feel there's two of them that are amazing. You have LEO only. When you join the group, they're going to ask you for your credentials and whatnot to verify, and they really try to keep the credibility there with who's joining. So that and Brothers Before Others, they both do amazing things. And then if you're looking to be a part of something, like I said, if you're in the South Florida, Team South Florida is amazing. Look them up. There's so many groups out there. At least the three that I named, I could personally vouch for that they do the right thing for law enforcement, their family members. When there's problems, they try to fix them. Of course, there's shenanigans. There's other things that go on in between, but that's what being a cop is all about.
Well, I really appreciate your time. And here at the Sergeant Frank Show, sponsored by Adopt a Cop USA, you can follow our programs. This show is going to air on Adopt a Cop USA official site on our YouTube channel. And soon it will be actually airing on our webpage, which is myAACUSA.org. and we will be able to rebroadcast all of these shows. And if there's any information that you want to contact me directly, please go to our website, and I'll be able to contact you with any information that you're looking for. And again, Lewis, I really appreciate you taking the time out tonight. I know you had a busy day. Thank you for supporting the the Thin Blue Line the way that you do. And with more officers like you and more deputies out there, I think we can turn the tide and turn us all back on the right direction so that we're all working as a team to put the United back in the United States.
Thank you. And thank you very much for everything you do. I look forward to hopefully doing more shows with you.
All right, brother, man. Well, you be safe. Stay warm, because I know the temperature's dropping up there in the great Northeast. And better you than me.
Thank you, brother. You too. Thank you. Take care.
All right, brother. Take care of yourself.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Listen, young one, it's not cool to be a thug. There is nothing good about going selling drugs. The money don't mean nothing when you're harming everyone. And you can get killed bringing pain to your mom. Take illegal substance and you can OT. Overdose from nasty chemicals in the streets. Live a happy life, you gotta keep your hands clean. And most importantly, think about your family.